Bucks have reportedly made some more roster moves that adds more of a crunch to this roster. Who is potentially the odd man out? Camille and I have an answer we share with you coming up after this on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network. You can find Camille weekly on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. A busy weekend for the Bucks, Camille, who dropped game number 2 of Summer League play to the Cavs, right? It blurs together. I have one more game as we record this on Sunday afternoon, one more game later tonight in Summer League action. But off the court, they were pretty busy, reportedly, with that caveat. Been a little more smoke around the future of Thanasis Antetokounmpo and whether or not that's back in Milwaukee. And then a guy that we brought up early into the offseason, and not like we were the only ones saying this, I think a lot of Bucks fans kept that name in mind even before the Damian Lillard news. And that's Cole Anthony, who Shams and a few others have reported has agreed to a buyout with the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember, he was in that Desmond Bane trade. So he moves into a crowded situation in Memphis with Ja Morant, Scottie Pippen Jr., and bought out and expects to sign with the Milwaukee Bucks. So your thoughts when you saw that news and the potential impact here of a Cole Anthony in Milwaukee?
My first thought was, okay, well, that's the other point guard that the Bucks are looking to acquire for their roster. We've heard that they wanted another point guard on the roster, but we were hearing that they were looking more so for a veteran point guard to bring on the roster. And you look at Cole Anthony, like he's already played 5 seasons in the NBA. I'd call him like a younger vet, just given the fact that he got into the league at the age of like 19, 20. So he was younger at the start there. He's 25 years old now, entering into his 6th NBA season. He spent his whole career with Orlando. And when I think of Cole Anthony, I think of a bucket, like a guy off the bench who can come in and just light it up a little bit for you. If he gets hot, he can get really hot really quick and pour him in. But another guy who's a little bit undersized, 6'1", 6'2". He tries on defense. He gives a lot of effort on the side of the ball. But as we've mentioned, and I quoted the Mind the Game podcast with Kevin Durant and LeBron James talking about how it's hard for 6'1", 6'2" point guards to start in today's NBA. But Cole Anthony coming off the bench as a scoring punch for you. Again, a 1-year contract. He has stuff to prove himself. I'm here for it. I was like, I'm here for it. I am so here for this signing. I'd much rather the Bucks go the route of another younger point guard rather than an older point guard. Even with the lumps that might come with that, this is the way that I would like for the team to go. So I was happy with the move.
Yeah, it kind of corners the market. I'd shade him in as a point guard, but he is kind of a combo guard. He's a bit undersized to be a combo guard, but the Bucks have kind of cornered the market on those types with Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, and now Cole Anthony. One of the more interesting discussions, too, when you knew you just had Ryan Rollins and KPJ under contract was, well, who's the starting point guard? Is it Kevin Porter Jr.? Is it Ryan Rollins? And last year we talked about the fit that Rollins has with that group, specifically Giannis, an ability to play off ball and kind of thrive as a spot up shooter that I was leaning towards. I think it kind of works better if you start Rollins and KPJ is kind of leading the charge along with Bobby Portis as your offense off the bench. This move, assuming it's finalized, changes that for me because I think there's a lot of duplicative parts to the games of Kevin Porter Jr. and Cole Anthony. I think KPJ's talent is certainly higher, but I think that's the ideal role for Cole Anthony. We talked about him being a bucket, that he's the guy that can kind of jump charge your offense in the half court. When you have Giannis off the floor, you just need some baskets here. That's where Cole Anthony comes in for you. So I do kind of think this means you're starting 5. We know 4 of them, I would say, in Kevin Porter Jr., Giannis, Miles Turner, and Gary Trent Jr. I'm still not quite sure about the 3 spot, which we'll get to when we now start to take a look at the makeup of this roster. But I think the big thing is you touched on the Bucks finding value the past couple of years for these minimum contracts. And to be fair, the Bucks aren't the only team doing so. We've talked about before this new CBA and how it's put a really big squeeze on the middle class. That's only going to continue. So you're able to get guys like a Cole Anthony on the minimum. You're able to keep Gary Trent Jr. on minimums or 120% raise and sign him last year to the minimum. So you're finding value there. And again, it's just overnight, seemingly, how John Horst has reshaped this roster. Whether or not they are a serious title contender, totally different argument. But this team has gotten much more athletic, much younger, in seemingly the blink of an eye. Where we talked about the pace, and you and I were texting during that first Summer League game too. Man, music to our ears to hear Doc Rivers say everything is going to run through Giannis, and we have to play faster. That's the bigger thing when you look at, okay, younger guys that are going to want to get up and run up and down the floor, opposed to more of a half court set here.
And Cole Anthony fits right into that framework as well. When I saw the news drop too, I reached out to the host of Locked On Magic, Philip, and I was just like, Phil, it's like Cole Anthony's coming to the Bucks. Like, what do you think about the move? I was like, because when I think of Cole Anthony, it's like I mentioned already, of like score first point.
I think of one thing in particular, but I'll let you finish your point first.
And Philip added, like, I would describe him as a score first guard. He can get to his shot quickly, score off the dribble. Doesn't have the point guard skills you would want from a player of his size. But if you have other guys that can handle the ball, like, it works really well with him. And the part about Cole Anthony that he really wanted to highlight was just that he's like the best teammate. And he said he described Cole Anthony as somebody who believed in the Magic rebuild before anyone else did. Even when he was moved from the starting lineup to the bench, took it in stride. Just, he said, a phenomenal teammate, a guy who's great for your culture. He's always cheering on his guys, and he can be good enough to win you a couple of games on his own if he gets hot. So like, he's like, I love the fit of Cole Anthony in Milwaukee. I think with Giannis being the guy who is initiating a lot more often, he fits in well. And I added too, like, if you have a Miles Turner, a Giannis behind you, it can help clean up some things if you do get beat, but he does compete. It's just, again, he's a smaller point guard, but he should be a great addition to the team.
Yeah, very good teammate by all accounts. Great dancer too, as everybody's seen the intro videos. But yeah, what stands out to me is I talked to somebody else and just said, let me know if I'm off base here, because I have seen, I don't know how to really sum up Cole Anthony's defense. I think a lot of Magic fans would tell you not good. And some of the maybe tiptoeing around what you and Philip were talking about there. But he's a guy that has put together highlight reels of insane individual defensive plays that I don't think he's the best defender. I don't think he's the worst. So to your point about having that support of capable team defenders around you and guys that can clean up the mess like Giannis and Miles Turner behind you is certainly something just about anybody would want to have to be playing alongside. But to me, the one thing, and I guess just to wrap up the overall, what are you getting here? I think his point too on doesn't really have the pure point guard skills you'd like for somebody of his size, but shot making ability, especially mid-rangers, that's where he gets his shot most frequently. He's okay on 3-point shooting. I think he's a career 36%, somewhere in that range. But he was really good last year on corner threes. And that is an area that you think there should be a pretty big opportunity in the minutes, especially when he's on the floor with Giannis, to generate those types of looks on drive and kicks and spot up shooting threes. But he's a great rebounder for his size and was in, I believe, the 96th percentile in shot blocking for point guards. And that's the one thing I will always remember, Camille. Was it last year or 2 years ago when Cole Anthony met Giannis at the Summit and blocked him in Fiserv Forum?
I think it was last year, but I do remember being surprised that the little man got some hops. He got up there again. And I think that goes again to what we were talking about with when it comes to defense. Like, yes, he'll get picked on because of his size. Yes, sometimes it won't look pretty, but the effort is going to be there for him on that side of the ball. He's not taking possessions off. He's trying. Again, the size might hinder him at times, but he's going to go after it. Like, he has that, I feel like this has become overused term, but he has that dog mentality in him a little bit on that end of the ball. Like, it might not always be the prettiest, but like you will always applaud the effort at the very least.
There's one other thing worth noting here with the Cole Anthony signing that we'll get to. And then I do want to pivot the conversation to the rest of the roster. We talked about trying to piece together, what does this depth chart look like? And is there anything that really jumps out when you're looking at how this roster is starting to come together? Who's going to be squeezed in terms of minutes? Have we maybe gotten an answer here with what the Bucks have done? We'll get into that conversation coming up next. Let's be honest, meal planning and grocery shopping can tend to be overwhelming. You got busy schedules. Maybe you're dealing with a household of picky eaters. Maybe you're just trying to eat healthier and you need that little nudge. It can be a lot, and that's why you're going to love Hungry Roots. They take the stress out of planning by filling your cart with personalized groceries and meal options based on what you like and need. They use their smart cart technology to recommend groceries, recipes, and even supplements tailored to your preferences. Whether you're dairy-free, gluten-free, focused on gut health, or just trying to eat better, Hungry Root has you covered. Take their quiz and find what that right look is for you. You can get your baskets customized and delivered quickly directly to your door. The meal prep done for you, affordable and delicious meals as well. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/lockedonnba and use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. So the other interesting thing here, Camille, is I don't know how many times this has happened, but there's potential now. The Bucks are going to have a father-son duo play for the team and wear the same number. So you go back to Greg Anthony wearing number 50. Cole Anthony has worn 50 all throughout. I believe he wore it at UNLV and wore it with the Magic. We haven't had a number 50 on the roster since Bonzie Colson in 2019, who put up some big games that final week of the regular season. Of course, our guy Dan Gadzarich, and then Greg Anthony, his lone year in Milwaukee in 2002. So you get a father-son duo back in the mix. So the Bucks have had brothers on the team, and maybe we'll get there again very soon. But now they're pivoting into father-son duos.
Man, to think about the fact that I can remember him on the Bucks, Greg Anthony, like that was like his last stop, if I remember correctly, in the NBA with the Bucks. And now you're watching his son and you're like, oh, he might also play for the exact same team. Like, when I was in college, my Uncle Michael, I said something like, oh, I'm getting old, Uncle Michael. Like, I'm in college now and this and this and that. And he said, you won't know what it feels like to be old until you start seeing the sons of athletes you watch start to compete. And I'm firmly in that bucket now of like, how are we here?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. playing. You're like, what?
Right.
When we get to the point that Carlos Delfino's son is in the NBA, that's when it's going to be time to start looking for a nursing home from me. All right, a little less fun. The roster crunch. And crunch is probably the wrong way to put it because they're perfectly fine. This signing of Cole Anthony would put them at 14 guys. As we've said, we'll save it for the last 7, and it seems like that 15th spot is earmarked for someone. But just the rotations crunch. So if we look at things now and say Cole Anthony's a point guard, you got Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, and Cole Anthony in that spot. You signed Gary Harris in the offseason. So you got Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, and Gary Harris in the backcourt as 2 guards. Taurean Prince did play some 2-guard last year. I think we'd all say Taurean Prince is a 3. Same with Andre Jackson Jr. is probably a 3. A guy you could play at the 2-guard. But the point of all of that is that's 6 guys definitively 8 guys potentially that you're looking at and saying they can play that 2-guard spot. That's a lot, and that's a big change from where they were a year ago. And I don't want to get too far in front of it. This isn't conspiracy theory corner. This is not any inside information, but I did make note of the fact that, we mentioned, and I think Frank talked about the notion of extending him too. AJ Green is eligible for an extension. We have heard nothing on that front so far.
Mm-hmm.
And you've added a lot to your backcourt. I don't know where you're going to find all the time for these guys. And maybe Gary Harris is simply just a break in case of emergency guy. Neither one of us are suggesting Gary Harris is going to play significant minutes on the team this year, but it is worth noting they have started to build up a lot of depth in the backcourt. There's a guy that's eligible for extension that does one thing extremely well, and you have limited assets to attach to contracts or move in potential trades. So this isn't to say something that's definitely coming, but I just took stock of all of this and said, that's interesting.
And it makes a lot of sense to keep an eye on it because AJ Green is a player, as you mentioned, with an elite skill set of shooting the ball. I think that Gary Harris is more so that break glass in case of emergency type of guard for the rotation for the Bucks. We'll see the playing time for Cole Anthony. But again, I've mentioned it, it's a smaller group of guys here, like height wise, a bunch of, 3-4 or not 3. If someone was 3-4 on the court, that'd be crazy. But a lot of 6'3", 6'4" guys there. But AJ Green's I got to keep an eye on because I keep waiting to get the alert of the Bucks have extended AJ Green, and it hasn't happened yet. Not to say it won't happen. It just has not happened yet. But hearing Doc Rivers at Summer League talk highly of AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr., those three in particular make me think that at the very least, those three are guys you can count on the Bucks, really having a heavy investment in this upcoming season, which somewhat calmed my light. Is AJ Green going to be thrown into possible trade conversations or anything like that? But hearing Doc talk about how he thinks that Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green are going to have breakout seasons for the Bucks, and he thinks that Kevin Porter Jr. is going to have the biggest breakout this upcoming season, calms my nerves a little bit of why isn't that AJ Green extension happened yet?
Yes. I did take that into account as well. We should note that there are some things that I think others have pushed back that Doc Rivers has said in those settings that maybe there's a morsel of accuracy or truth to it, but not entirely. And look, neither one of us are advocating or pushing you got to trade AJ Green. I think it's more of just this is starting to be interesting. Because to your point, I even if they traded AJ Green, I don't think that means, okay, Gary Harris is going to play 25 minutes a game. But, we just said he's technically a point guard for you. Same with Ryan Rollins. Same with Cole Anthony. They're all combo guards that you basically have 4 guys then to fill those 2 spots in the backcourt. So it's not paper thin per se. And, we've seen John Horst get very creative. You don't have much left. And it just means, okay, are you willing to part with the 2031 first round pick? I think the moves that we've seen the Bucks make lead you to believe, yes, they are. If you're willing to eat $22.5 million and just say, we got to keep doing whatever we can for these next 2 to 3 years, especially while we have Giannis here and in his prime to try and win. But that's it. And that limits what you have. I mean, we talked about how valuable it is, but some of the names that you'll see kicked around, everybody loves to try to pick over the roster of the Pelicans. Even if we can kind of push back on some of the moves Joe Dumars has already made, I think they're going to be asking for more than just here's a contract and here's that pick. So that's where I made note of it to say, this is interesting. And again, by no means am I saying you need to trade AJ Green, but I think we do need to understand he's a little bit older than I think a lot of Bucks fans think. Not that he's old at all, but he's going to turn 26 at the start of the season, which again, not old, but I think a lot of Bucks fans would look at it and say, well, AJ Green, 22, 23 years old. That is not the case. And he is at this point, I think he's bordering on an elite shooter with the skill set that he has. We talked about his defense being better than you would anticipate. But AJ Greens are easier to find than like a 3-and-D wing player. And that's ideally what the missing piece is that they're targeting.
Yep, I do wonder, just kind of to wrap up the AJ Green conversation and looking at like the guard rotation the Bucks have. I do wonder if the Bucks utilize him more as a three upcoming. Just like we do have the guards. We love Kevin Porter Jr. We got Ryan Rollins. We like what Cole Anthony can bring. We got Gary Trent Jr. What if we do see AJ Green just slide into that 3 slot a little bit more? And again, he's only 6'4", maybe 6'5" on a good day. So like, again, you're still not getting your ideal, 6'6", 6'7" wing there, but he could be somebody that you could use as a 2-3 in rotation.
6'7" wingspan for a 6'4" guy. Gary Trent Jr. is a 6'9" wingspan. So not really gaining much on that front. And again, I don't want the Bucks to trade AJ Green. I'm not saying they are going to trade AJ Green, but it's one of the things I don't think you can dismiss immediately and say, okay, let's see what else plays out here. Because that contract extension that he is eligible for, it's not this year's cap. It wouldn't go in effect until next year. So is there not an extension because you want the team that's doing that would be potentially acquiring him to work that out or figure out what the pay is? I don't know, but that was something that raised my interest and certainly brought some raised eyebrows there. So we'll see what develops with that 3 spot, because that's really where the hole is right now for the Bucks. We can finish that point and take a look at potentially the 15th spot, and could there be a change with some 2-way spots for the Bucks coming up after this? Well, summertime's here. Sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel's the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following that action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburns at the beach. It's easy to use, fast payouts, and it makes even regular season games feel bigger, like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, yeah, I mean, just looking at it too, we said Kuzma, Torian Prince. I think Andre Jackson Jr. slot in as your small forwards. Kuzma, as we've gone over, ideally is a 4. But for what they have right now in the roster, sure, you could play Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green together in the 2 and 3 spots. Curious to see if that's the play there, and you have either KPJ or Ryan Rollins and then Cole Anthony come off the bench. But for the time being, maybe it's Kuzma. And maybe there's a bounce back season there. But that's the one spot you would look at now and say, yeah, I got questions. Like you can say, well, KPJ and Ryan Rollins, not the greatest backcourt or not the best point guards. I think we saw it work enough last year to the level that you needed to with Giannis. It's just that number 3, the small forward position is the big question mark right now. And that's, I think, the one thing we're still waiting to see. Is this the group, or is there something else coming in that spot? Speaking of something else coming, the other report from the weekend, which, I mean, surprise of the century, right? It would appear Thanasis Antetokounmpo is going to be back on the Bucks with that 15th spot. Absolutely no problem with it. I think all 3 of us, you, me, and Frank, have said before, look, if this is one thing that keeps Giannis here and keeps him happy, fine. I'll give Thanasis a lifetime contract to be the 15th guy in the roster.
Every single time. every single time. I never quite got all of the outrage around Thanasis' spot on the Bucks for all the years that he was here as an end of the bench guy. Like every single team, if you build your roster out 14, 15 deep, the guys on the end of the bench don't generally get much playing time. So what are you looking for from those spots? And everything that Thanasis brought to the team with his consistent energy, with his just being a good teammate, him being the brother of the MVP, something that can help keep this guy happy. I'm here for all of that. And I made a joke to a friend and I said, with the Bucks pushing Andre Jackson Jr.'s, guarantee date back. So what if Thanasis ends up being being in the role that people thought Andre Jackson Jr. would, which my friend laughed when I said it, but I was like, Thanasis is a 6'7" wing player. Now he's coming off an Achilles injury himself. And a lot of his game was predicated on athleticism and his speed and whatnot.
That's where you're wrong, Camille. His game is predicated on desire and heart and intensity.
That's never going to change. That's never going to change. So that'll still be there, but it'll be really interesting to see how his game looks coming back from that injury. And if he does find himself being thrown in to the game for a few spot minutes every so often.
Yeah. And I guess what I'd like to pivot, the last thing to touch on is that point that you made about the guarantee date for Andre Jackson Jr. We talked about it last week, and similar to the AJ Green conversation, is there a potential deal in the works here? It is a 2-game sample size, and it's summer league, but it has not been a great showing in summer league for Andre Jackson Jr. It was up and down at best the course of the last 2 seasons in the regular season. And to me, the bigger thing is he is clearly, and I think Doc even talked about this when he was on the broadcast, he is clearly a very good on-ball defender. And I think Doc's words were even like, he borders on elite in that regard. Off-ball defense is something that does need to improve, and certainly the offense, and figuring out where to excel there needs to improve. And I've seen people say, well, he's figured out his shot. I mean, fine. He had a nice percentage on threes in his efficiency last year. It was a very low volume of attempts. So it's still a work in progress there. But I think the interesting part is a lot of the fascination with Ajax came from that. Not to, say, hey, he's a bad player and pile on. A lot of it came from that, but also I think Andre Jackson Jr. stood out a lot more because he was playing on an older team that didn't have quite as much athleticism. And, his rookie year didn't really have any good outside of like Giannis and Brook Lopez, individual defensive players that he popped off the page partially because of that. I'm not even going to say largely. He was a very good on-ball defender. But I just wonder, as the Bucks have reshaped this roster, got younger, got more athletic, increased the individual level of defenders on the team, I think it's diminished. And that's where it became difficult last year when you made the moves at the deadline to change your team and saw, well, we don't really have as pressing of a need for Andre Jackson Jr. right now because, our offense was great the year prior. We just couldn't find anybody to make a stop, and that's where Ajax came in. Our offense needed help last year. That's where Ajax is not going to help us. So I don't know what to make of the Summer League performance so far. I don't really take much from Summer League, but I mean, I think it's fair to say you were hoping you would see some growth offensively from Andre in these 2 games, and we just have not.
Yeah, growth, and even just the decision making, just being quicker with what he decides to do with the ball. Like I mentioned in the first Summer League game, a lot of ups and downs towards the end of that first game, like when the Bucks were in clutch time, I guess you would say, Summer League clutch time. He made some winning plays. He was pushing the ball in transition and getting offensive rebounds, hit down a no hesitation wing 3, where that was only his second shot of the entire game. But he just hasn't popped the way that you would hope a third-year player looks in this environment. And we've had conversations about how his game translates, and sometimes this might not be the best look, the best place to actually judge what he does. But even with all of those qualifiers, like, I still wanted to see more, and there's still time to see more. As we mentioned, we're recording this before the third game takes place tonight in Summer League. So, like, there's still some more runway for him, but the early returns haven't been great. And it reminds me a bit of the conversations we were having last summer about Marjan, of like what we were hoping to see from him in this setting, and how, as you're watching, you're like, it's just been a little bit underwhelming so far, his play in the Summer League.
Yeah, and on the flip side, it's been quite a showing for Chris Livingston so far. I mean, look, as when we talked about the two ways too, we haven't. Mark Sears was battling the injury, but Jamari Bouye had the game winner in game one, and then Pete Nance, I believe those two are still under two-way deals for the Bucks, would be your third. I wonder if Chris Livingston is shown enough that some other team is showing an interest here, or if there's the possibility to say, Chris Livingston, welcome back on a two-way deal. Or, as we just mentioned too, does something else happen with somebody else on the roster and the guarantee date for Andre Jackson Jr., where you potentially open up another spot, or maybe you don't sign Thanasis, and is Chris Livingston back with the Bucks? But that's been the part that I think we all probably knew was going to happen, that, the guy that at least statistically, and I think flashes in game time as well, has shown you the most is the guy that you just released.
Yeah, and it's wild. Like, Chris Livingston has stood out to me of just looking like he's just stronger than a lot of the guys that he's playing against so far in Summer League. Like, the growth in his game, his decision making has been a lot quicker, I feel like, this summer for him when it comes to taking the shots, driving to the basket, being assertive in that way. So we know that Summer League is a showcase, not just for the team that you're playing for at the moment, but for the entire league, even overseas opportunities, whatever the case may be. But if Chris Livingston continues looking like one of the best players on the Bucks Summer League team, I definitely could see a world where the Bucks are trying to find a way to bring him back into the fold.
Yeah. Way back when, Camille, it wasn't too long ago that a few of us kind of said, I see something in this guy. I wonder if something develops there. Leave your thoughts on what we've seen from Summer League so far. Again, we're recording this before game number 3. Maybe something that happens that warrants a reaction to game number 3, and you get 2 episodes your way. But leave your thoughts on what we've seen so far from Summer League and the rotation crunch. Where the Bucks go from here? What do the rotations look like? What's the role for Cole Anthony? Is there a trade on the horizon for this group? Leave your thoughts, and we'll get to those reactions coming up on our next show. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.